Everyone moving to San Antonio is told the same thing. Just move to the north side and avoid a few bad zip codes. When I pulled up the actual crime maps, the cost of living numbers, and long-term neighborhood trends, I realized that advice could cost you tens of thousands of dollars. If you're a middle-aged professional, maybe relocating from out of state or upgrading from your starter home, and you're thinking about moving to the greater San Antonio area in the next 12 to 24 months, this matters more than you think. Because picking the wrong part of town isn't just, meh, I don't love my neighborhood problem. It can change your daily commute, your kids' opportunities, your safety, and easily swing your net worth by tens of thousands of dollars over the next few years. Later on in this video, I'll show you one of those cluster neighborhoods that almost everyone online calls up and coming. But when you look at the numbers, you'll see why they feel very differently once you actually live here. If you're serious about not wasting your move, stay with me. Now on paper, it looked perfect. It was a gated community, super strong school rating, newer construction, and tons of shopping and medical options right there. Everything seemed fine until we overlaid their daily life on a map. Their jobs ended up being closer to Lackland Air Force Base, and the wife had to go downtown, and they realized their property taxes plus HOA fees were higher than they originally expected, and their easy commute turned into 45 minutes each way in traffic on 281 and 1604. They weren't in a bad area at all, but it also wasn't the right area for them and how they actually live their lives. Now, before I show you why this keeps happening to smart buyers in the San Antonio area, there's something important you need to understand first. It's the part nobody talks about in those best neighborhood articles, but it quietly decides whether San Antonio is the best move of your life or the most expensive lesson. Let's talk about three things first. The real market, the rules of the game, taxes, HOA, and location, and the most common misunderstanding I see people bring to the San Antonio area. First, the market reality. Cost of living is roughly 8 to 9% below the US average and several points below the Texas average. The median home prices is in the mid 200s to the 300,000, which is far under Austin and Dallas. Articles and neighborhood guidelines high point places like Alamo Heights, Stone Oak, and the Dominion as some of the best spots to live in the city. So the expectation is simple. Move here, pick a good neighborhood off a blog list, enjoy low cost of living, better schools, and a safer environment than where you're coming from. Now let me tell you a story. I had a client who thought they were doing everything right. They were moving in from out of state. They saw a bunch of best neighborhoods in San Antonio articles and narrowed in on the north side, a place like Stone Oak and a similar community right next to it because that's where the good schools are at, right? That's where the newer homes are supposed to be. Now second, taxes, HOA, and those invisible rules. Some of the best suburbs on paper, gated newer construction communities with those great amenities come with higher property tax bills, MUDs or PID assessments in some areas, and those HOA rules can affect everything from parking your work truck in the driveway to whether you can build that awesome workshop in the backyard that you've always wanted. Now in contrast, some older neighborhoods closer to downtown might have lower HOA fees or maybe none even at all, but you trade in the older infrastructure, mixed commercial nearby, and sometimes higher crime depending on the block that you're in. And third, misunderstanding. Most people assume if I just move to the north side in one of the top neighborhoods like Stone Oak, I'll automatically get better schools, low crime, and future appreciation. Now that can be true, but only if your lifestyle, commute, school needs, and risk tolerance actually match that area is designed for. And if they don't, the very things that make that neighborhood desirable on paper become the exact reasons you feel trapped or frustrated. So let's circle back to that same couple. A year later, they called me. They said, we love our house, but our life is in the wrong part of town. We're exhausted. The kids' activities are on the opposite side of town. We're barely seeing each other because of the commute, and the extra taxes and HOA dues are eating into the savings we thought we'd have moving into San Antonio. The neighborhood wasn't bad. It was actually one of the nicer ones north of the city, but for them, it was the wrong kind of nice. That moment changed how I explained what's happening now. I stopped talking about best neighborhoods in a vacuum and started asking, best for who and for how long? You might think the solution is simple. Okay, just avoid the high crime pockets, pick a safe, affordable area, and I'm good. Or just go with one of the online top 5 lists like Alamo Heights, Monte Vista, Stone Oak, the Dominion, maybe a trendy downtown other transitional neighborhood. And trust that if other people like it, then I will too. But this is where people get it wrong. Those lists are actually based off a mix of school scores, home prices, and general reputation, not your life, your budget, and your timeline. And here's what we know so far. San Antonio overall is more affordable than most Texas big cities, but the averages hide big differences between neighborhoods. Some of the most desirable areas on paper come with a higher carrying cost, stricter rules, and commutes that may not fit your real life. And picking the wrong good area can hurt just as much as picking an obviously rough area if it doesn't line up with how you actually live. And soon I'll explain exactly how I break San Antonio down into lifestyle zones, including what parts of town tend to work best for families, young professionals, retirees, and military, and where the data says you should slow down and ask more questions before you buy. And hey, do me a favor, if this is helpful, hit the like button so more actually people see data-backed breakdown of San Antonio instead of just another top 5 neighborhoods video. Now let's add some depth here. Data, long-term applications, and those hidden trade-offs that you don't see in those glossy neighborhood photos. First, the data. When you look at the cost of living comparison, San Antonio's overall cost obviously sits about 9% below the national average and around 4% below the Texas average, largely because housing is around 21% cheaper in general. But inside the metro, you've got everything from high-end enclaves like Terrell Hills and Alamo Heights, where prices are in the high 6 figures to well over $1 million, to more affordable but higher crime areas on the west side and the near east sides. At the same time, crime statistics show very specific pockets like parts of the Arena District, the West End, and other west and east side neighborhoods where violent crime rates are well above the city averages. Second, long-term implications. Choosing a neighborhood near job centers, strong schools, and stable amenities tends to support property values over time, especially in the areas like Alamo Heights, Stone Oak, and certain North Central and Inner Loop neighborhoods. But there's also opportunity in up-and-coming spots, areas close to downtown like Pearl and Southtown, where walkability and redevelopment are driving new interest, even though they may still have mixed crime and older housing stock. Third, hidden trade-offs. Safe, affordable, family-friendly areas can mean longer commutes and more time in your car. Trendy, walkable, near downtown areas can mean higher noise, older homes, and less space. Now, the luxury gated top schools can mean higher taxes, HOAs, and pressure to keep up with a certain lifestyle. This is the part that nobody talks about because most buyers don't realize that in San Antonio, your biggest win or your biggest regret isn't just which neighborhood you pick today, it's how that choice lines up with where the city is heading over the next 5 to 10 years. Now, once you see this through a different lens, everything changes. I had another client, a single professional in his late 30s. Everyone told him just go straight to the classic best suburbs because that's where the good schools and resale are at when you have family and kids, etc. down the line. But obviously he didn't have any kids yet. He worked partially remote and loved going to the restaurants, live music, and events downtown. You know, all the things that you do before you have kids and a family. Instead of chasing the same north side suburbs that everyone talks about, we looked at some of the revitalizing inner loop neighborhoods, areas near the Pearl, Southtown, and certain pockets just north of downtown where the crime stats were improving, amenities were exploding, and walkability was a real thing. Now, his payment was similar to what he would have had if he would have spent further north, but his daily life felt completely different. Short drives, walkable nights out, and the sense he was part of the city's next chapter, not just a distant bedroom community. Same city, same budget, a totally different experience. Now, here's the real truth about where to live in San Antonio. It is not about chasing some universal list best and panicking over the headlines about the absolute worst areas. It's about understanding your lifestyle, your risk tolerance, and your time horizon, and then matching those to the right zone of the city because the same neighborhoods can be the best decision in your life or the biggest regret depending on who you are. Now, I think if you're a family with school-age kids and a 9-to-5 job in the medical center or on the north side, your best may be very different from a remote worker or a military family near JBSA or a retiree who wants low maintenance and a lock and leave lifestyle. Once you stop asking what's the best neighborhood and start asking what's the best fit for how we live, what we value, and where we're going, all the noise in these lists suddenly makes sense. This way of looking at San Antonio really works well if you are willing to be honest about your lifestyle, commute tolerance, kids' activities, social life, and what you actually do on weeknights and weekends. If you care about both safety and opportunity, not just one or the other, so you're willing to look at the data, the school rankings, and development plans all together. And you're thinking in terms of at least 5 to 10 year horizon and want your neighborhood choice to support not just your payment today, but your equity and options later on. It's not a good fit if you just want the cheapest house you can find and you don't care about the commute, the safety, or long-term resale. Or you only care about being in the fanciest zip code, even if that means stretching your budget and putting pressure on everything else in your life. Or you aren't willing to slow down and look at the actual numbers and maybe consider a neighborhood that doesn't show up in every clickbait top 5 list, but it fits your lifestyle perfectly. This is why understanding this before you buy matters. It's not right or wrong, it's about alignment for your lifestyle, with your neighborhood, your budget, with your long-term plan, and your expectation with the reality that this city's layout and its trends. If you get that right, San Antonio can be one of the best moves you will ever make. But if you miss it, the best neighborhood on paper can quietly become the worst decision for your family. Now, in the next video you watch, it's a deep dive on my favorite subdivision on the northwest side of San Antonio and Bernie, where I pull up the map and walk you through the specific neighborhood, price points, and examples so you can actually see how this plays out on the ground. It builds directly on what we just talked about today, and it'll help you start building your own short list of where to live and where to slow down and ask more questions before you even step on a plane.